WordNerds. I recently read a YA fantasy book called Bloodleaf by Crystal Smith, which I really enjoyed, so if you are interested in a YA fantasy full of murder and magic, definitely check it out. But the reason I am mentioning it today is because it was also a retelling of the grim fairy tale The Goose Girl. I first became familiar with the Goose Girl fairy tale through Shannon Hale's book, The Goose Girl, which is a very classic retelling that I read when I was about 12 or 13 and fell in love with. I remember being in middle school and reading The Goose Girl and thinking, I want to retell that story one day. I want to put my own twist on it. And I came up with a few ideas for it, but never actually wrote any of it because that's kind of how my writing went back then. But it's also how the idea of retellings has always been for me. I love retellings of mythology and fairy tales and classic literature, and I've always really wanted to write one, and there have been a lot of different tales and stories that I've thought that would be really fun to retell, but I never actually do it. I find the idea of retelling an existing classic story very intimidating because while on the one hand, you already have a built-in plot and conflict, maybe some of your characters, you also have to find a way to make all of that fresh and new and exciting, especially for stories that have been retold a lot of times. But writing a retelling is still one of my biggest goals for my writing career. It's something I definitely plan to do one day once I find the right idea for it. So today I'm going to share a few of the classic stories that I really want to retell one day. The first story that I am dying to retell one day is one that has been done a million times before, so it's probably the most intimidating and the scariest to retell for me, but it has been my favorite fairy tale since I was very, very young. There's even a picture in the background from the classic Disney adaptation. It is Beauty and the Beast. I think at one point a part of me had kind of given up on the idea of ever retelling Beauty and the Beast because it's been done so many times before, and how do you top the classic of Robin McKinley's Beauty? But then I read Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge a few years back, which still had a lot of the classic elements of the story that I loved so much, but also was really fresh and really different and really unique, and it gave me hope that maybe I could find a way to make a fresh spin on a story that I really, really love. But this is still one that I feel like I will have to come up with something unique and different before I can write it, because I don't want to just be redoing what has been done a million times before. I want to put my own fresh spin on it, and I just haven't been able to come up with that idea yet. Another fairy tale that I've loved since childhood is Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen. When I was a kid, we had some family friends whose house I stayed at a lot, and they had this beautiful illustrated copy of The Snow Queen that I was obsessed with. Every time I went to their house, I just wanted to read that book. I find the whole story hauntingly beautiful with all of the imagery of snow and ice and remoteness from the world. Plus, the character of the Snow Queen is very intriguing. I want to pull back the layers of her and understand her motivations better. This is one retelling that I actually have a bit of an idea for. I know what little twist I want to put on it, so hopefully I will eventually get around to writing that at some point. Greek mythology has been the focus of a lot of retellings, just like fairy tales. There are just so many stories within that mythology to mine ideas from. But something I haven't seen retold yet that I'm kind of interested in exploring one day is the story of Icarus. I mean, the whole idea of overconfidence and forgetting your limits and flying too close to the sun sounds like the perfect base for a young adult book, so it's something I really want to explore and maybe write one day. I also would love to retell one of Jane Austen's books. I know it's basic, but I love them. I have read and watched and enjoyed so many adaptations of Pride and Prejudice, but I think I'd like to maybe explore one of her other books, maybe Persuasion, which is my favorite Jane Austen novel, or maybe Sense and Sensibility, which I actually did try writing a retelling of that once and didn't get very far. I don't know if I'd want to retell a Jane Austen book as a contemporary novel or fantasy or something else, but there's just so many great themes and characters and biting social commentary that there's really a lot to work with. Another fairy tale that I would love to come up with an idea for eventually is 12 Dancing Princesses. Once upon a time, I woke up from a dream thinking that dream would make an amazing book. So I grabbed my phone and made a note to myself thinking I will understand what this note means in the morning. But in the morning when I checked my notes app, all it said was sci-fi 12 Dancing Princesses, and I still have no idea what that means, what it entails, what was going on in that dream, but it sounds pretty cool. I just would have to figure out what to do with it. Also, I have never even tried writing science fiction before, so that's a whole new arena for me. And finally, another story that has been retold many times, but I really want to try my hand at it, is the myth of Hades and Persephone. I always really love the idea of retellings of this myth, but a lot of the ones I've read have ultimately been unsatisfying for me. Nearly all of them have been missing some little element to make it click perfectly with me, so it's just one of those instances of not being satisfied with the books that already exist and wanting to try it myself and see if I can make a version that I love, the version that I want. Anyway, those are 6 fairy tales, myths, classic literature that I really would love to try retelling. Most of them I have no idea how I would do it, just that it would be fun and that I think I'd really enjoy it. Let me know in the comments what stories you want to retell or which ones you've already done. If you have any tips, definitely let me know. And don't forget to join us this Sunday, tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time for our live chat. We will be talking about the paranormal genre.